Welcome to our third session of third Canvas Summer Academy. This short movie is just to give you an idea what will be the topics for today. It always gives me chills when I watch it, and I thought it would be a great way to actually start this session today. Last week, we had an opportunity actually to host really brave activists from Myanmar and Burkina Faso who shared their stories, how to encounter military grabs, and together with amazing Jamila Rakib and Srđan Popović try to give answers to what activists can actually do in the case of a coup. On Thursday, together with Canvas chairman Slobodan Đinović, we hosted two activists from Ukraine and Russia and talked, among other things, about the role of global civil resilience in countering invasion and war. This week, our final week, we will try actually to cover two topics. First one is how, as you all know, how women activism is reshaping the world. And this Thursday, Srđan Popović, together with brave activists from Bolivia and Georgia, will discuss how environmental and anti-corruption campaigns give a new breed for social movements. Today, I have this great honor to moderate a session on an important topic, which is closely related to what I devoted my life as a woman activist. And as someone who, together with my colleagues from Canvas, provided support to thousands of activists around the world and have had chance to meet and work with some incredible brave women over the last 15, 20 years. Some of them are here today. Some became part of the Canvas network and part of Canvas team. Some continue to inspire people and continue to be brave as always. So from Canvas methodology point of view, when it comes to movement organizing and nonviolent change, research always shows that sustainable peace is more likely to happen if women are meaningfully involved, that campaigns that feature greater women's participation in terms of both the extent of women's frontline participation, but also formal involvement of women's organizations are more likely actually to maintain nonviolent discipline and avoid like violent flanks. And more importantly, nonviolent campaigns with high degrees of frontline women participations are more likely to produce loyalty shifts from the security forces. So the same is true for campaigns in which women's participants actively call for peaceful mobilization. And I think that even through this movie, but you know, we had an opportunity actually to see through history about evidence about these researches. Today, we will actually discuss some of the key questions that you can find here. And in order to help me to give some of the answers, we invited three amazing women. Unfortunately, Saidia has some electricity difficulties in Indonesia, and hopefully she will be able to join us by the end of today's session. But today here with us, we have Dr. Leila Hussein, psychotherapist specializing in supporting survivors of sexual abuse and one of the most recognized anti-FGM activists globally. Welcome, Leila. She's a leading and award-winning campaigner against all forms of violence against women and girls, and currently works for the as a global advocacy director of the Girl Generation. Sorry for, I'm trying actually to say everything in a short time. Next, we have famous Serbian actress, Daniela Steinfeld. She is a Serbian actress and author of a documentary called Me Right. And now I can really say a women's rights activist here in Serbia who started Me Too movement when she actually decided and had courage to speak up after sexual abuse. So Daniela, Leila, thank you for taking some time actually to be part of today's session. And maybe, Leila, we can start with you as someone who is actually leading campaigner against all forms of violence against women. And we can see those violence in many forms and many shapes. Not, like we can hear a lot about a woman being too emotional, like this happened to me this morning, because when you're passionate about something, then you're too emotional to lead something, or, we are seen as a sexual object. And then we can also talk about physical sexual abuses that happen a lot. So what actually triggered you to start providing support to survivors, and how you became activists?
Hi everyone. Kevin, Steve, thank you so much for having me. I really love the question you asked. What triggered you? It really was a trigger. I don't think activists choose to be activists. I think it's usually fueled by anger and frustration. And for me, really, that's what it was. I'm a survivor of female genital mutilation. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's when your female genitalia is partially or totally removed, for the reason of, people say, culture, tradition, religion. But fundamentally, it's to control the female body, female sexuality. That's what it is. And my anger really was towards, so I grew up in the UK. My anger was really towards the UK government for not recognizing it for what it is. I think the conversation was always, well, this is a cultural practice by, African people. For me, it was, you touch a child's genitalia, it's illegal, and we need to see it. So it was really out of anger and really challenging the UK government and obviously challenging communities. However, through that work, I call myself the accidental activist. I didn't even know I was an activist until a journalist said I was an activist. I was just asking a lot of questions that nobody was answering. That's the only way I can describe this. And obviously, I ended up training as a psychotherapist because I had to go to therapy myself. I had to really, because all my stuff got triggered while doing this work. And I'm sure Daniela can share a similar thing in terms of when you're doing this work that is so close to you, you have to check your own mental health. And that led me to me being in therapy, then now me training as a therapist. And now what I've done is bring my therapy work and my activism into one space. And I really, I created an emotional well-being tool for activists here in Kenya a couple of years ago. And really for me, this is something I've been extremely passionate about because I think it goes hand in hand. The mental health of activists has to be checked, resourced, and taken care of. And it's been, such great pleasure working with Canvas, with the Oslo Freedom Forum fellows, recognizing the mental well-being of activists is absolutely key. Because, as activists, we are at the forefront, we're in danger at all times, but then we are also talking to survivors of violence. I'm constantly talking to women and girls who have been violated. So it's absolutely key that we ensure their well-being. So that's what really triggered me. I wish I could take a break sometimes, but I think right now where I am with my activism, I'm I would use the word radical. We are considered radical women. I'm very radical about women now resting, having pleasure. That's the conversation we need to be having in the women's world. We know just from that video, you can clearly see the biggest movements, social movements in the world were led by women. That's a fact. But obviously men came and stole that and they carried on with whatever they did with it. But it was women. If you look at the civil rights movement in the US, it was of Emmett Till's mother. It was her showing her son's face that was disfigured, that really that kicked off that whole movement, the Me Too movement. It was women who led that movement. The Black Lives Matter movement was led by women. So it's really important to recognize, the big role women played. But unfortunately, we also need to recognize the dangers we face as women in this space. We are, as you said, we are considered emotional. I don't apologize for being emotional. I'm like, yes, I'm absolutely bloody angry. And why shouldn't none of us be angry? I own my anger, but also I don't want to be gaslit, by being put down because I'm a woman and I'm angry. Women have a reason to be angry, so we shouldn't be apologizing for being angry, to be honest. And I think we should own that. But also, women get a different type of threats. I've never met an male activist who was threatened to be raped. Women are threatened to be raped and tortured. So we are in two different spaces when we are, leading these movements. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I feel better about me being emotional this morning.
Own your emotions.
Thank you, Leila. So Dia just joined us. So Dia, take a breath, and I will just ask Daniela. You actually started your healing process through art, right? And tell us about, what actually made you speak up first. I know how that can feel here in Serbia, because most of the time, why you were so quiet tell us why you were so quiet for so many years, and then you decided so many years after to speak up. Maybe that we can start with that question. You're on mute. Try to log out and then log in again, or try without headphones. Now it works. Headphones don't work.
Can you hear me right now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, I have my roommate's dog here, so if she barks, hopefully we will enjoy the barking. Hi everybody, and thank you so much for having me. So the reason why I spoke up, what has happened to me, it took me 8 years, a little bit more than 8 years, since I was sexually assaulted by a colleague in the theater production in Serbia, who happens to be a person of political power and position. And I fled Serbia. I left a beautiful career behind me as an actor. And I found, I was lucky enough to find safety in the United States. And I was pretty, if you can imagine, after that kind of experience and after fleeing in silence, and I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell anybody, because the crime and the consequences of it would be, I think, crushing. And I thought that it would done much more damage to everybody that I care and love, including myself. I think that if you can imagine, Breza and anybody who's from the Balkan region, like speaking up in 2012 would not be an option for, I think, any person in Serbia, let alone a public person. And somebody that, I was assaulted by somebody very, very powerful and famous. So I just didn't think that my odds of speaking up, even though I really, really actually wanted to, I just understood that might just have much more dire and unreversible consequences for me and for my family. I was literally worried for my safety and for my life. And I was, so yeah, I'm somebody that is extremely lucky to have found safety and healing. And I understand that I understand that luck. I understand how my odds were so small to ever kind of come out as in this way, empowered, safe, healed, and in community of people like yourselves that understand my fight. So I just took responsibility that I just couldn't sit in silence. I just understood that I have safety to speak for so many women that cannot speak, and I just I just didn't know how to. I understood that the consequences of my personal life and life of my family back in Serbia would be, that could go many different directions. Like now I'm being sued by the perpetrator, and I suffered through like pretty heavy humiliation publicly after speaking out. I still understood that consequences, because I'm safe and because I'm healed, are so much. It's so much worthwhile in the long run to speak up, and it will actually empower and heal me. So and yeah, important thing is, as I said, lucky. I was in a really lucky company and good company. I was also inspired and empowered by Layla, who I met back in 2017, I think, in New York. And I remember first time watching people, and folks and activists from Human Rights Foundation, from Oslo Freedom Forum, in awe, and I just couldn't understand their bravery and I understood how their words and actions go such a long way, and it's takes so much courage and strategy to tear out basically the status quo. So I was definitely inspired by folks that surrounded me in New York, and I wanted to make a movie or a film, as I said, to heal myself, like out of selfish reasons, but also to try to give a medicine or a tool for healing for others.
Thank you, Daniela. We will get back to you about the movie and the healing process later on. Sagdia, welcome. Sagdia is actually the first Muslim female stand-up comedian. She's from Indonesia. She won a lot of international awards and recognitions for her work and for fighting the women equality in the region, but also globally. So, welcome, and tell us, like, how did you actually combine activism, using humor, and using comedy? How did that happen?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bredza. First of all, I have to recognize it's a great honor, such a humbling experience for me to be here and to be with all of you. Daniela said about being lucky, about being privileged, and indeed safe space for women is I mean, it is sad that we say that it is a privilege and that we are lucky to have a safe space, because it is everyone's rights, especially women, to have a safe space. This is not a privilege, but sadly it is. I mean, sadly it is, like, to be able to be in the presence of everyone who are, who are listening, who are supportive. And with that, I would like to begin with us understanding laughter and what it means and what it means to women. Let us all think about the many literatures, films, films, books, songs, whatever it is that we have been exposed to, and remember how laughter and women are connected to one another. We are looking at giggling. We are looking at words like giggling. We are looking at words smiling. We are looking at words, many words other than laughter. Why? Because once you have laughter, then you're thinking about which characters who like laughing so hard, ha ha ha. We are even taught, especially in Asian context, especially in Indonesian context. I'm not going to speak for all Asia, especially in Indonesian context, to just cover our mouth when we're laughing. And this is only for women, to just cover their mouth when they're laughing, not to open wide, not to laugh. And ever since I was a child, when we're talking about laughing, ha, 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 then we are exposed to characters like witches. And witches in the history of the world are those who are at the forefront of struggle, are terms that are used to just undermine us and everything that we do. It's almost like laughing is the last taboo or whatnot. I was brokenhearted that I even saw my daughter, she's 4 years old, and I never teach her this, but she cover her mouth when she's laughing. She's 4. And this is one of the reasons really why I continue doing what I'm doing, to just find power in comedy. If we can agree that laughter is the best medicine, then make it so. Then make it a healing power, like Daniela said, healing power for all of us. And how comedy come to me, how I got, and for your question on how I got into comedy, basically the formula for comedy is tragedy plus time equals comedy. That's what they say. So tragedy plus time equals comedy. I was born and raised in conservative community, in Muslim conservative community in Central Java, where you're basically born and raised to be like groomed to be, the bride of one of the, eligible, hopefully rich and powerful guy, men in the community. So child marriage is very, very common, combined with domestic violence. All are done in the name of religion. All are done in the name of religion, as if this is something noble to do, as if this is something right. This is something right to do. And then when I thought that this only happens in my close circle community, when I went outside, I went to college, I realized that, hold on, you are campaigning child marriage. You're campaigning child marriage, you're campaigning, I don't know, polygamy, sometimes doing polygamy seminars in like public universities, in like highly respected public university. And all of these, when Breza is talking about transition and transitions of power especially, all of these happens throughout the course of post-authoritarian Indonesia. So we overthrew the dictatorship in 1998, and there's been transitions since. Indonesia is a country vibrant with human rights activism. We have human rights commissions. We have commissions against violence against women, for eradications of violence against women. Many human rights commissions, human rights organizations. But at the same time, there are those who are hijacking democracy because, well, it's the irony of democracy. We should, it's for everyone. Everyone must be heard. Everyone have the opportunity. And then come the more conservative, or so to speak, Islamist organizations doing those types of campaign. And I realized that there are many ironies. Like there are many ironies in the way that they are, I don't know, campaigning their cause. For instance, like, you are not supposed to look to women in the eye, and then many of the men will like look down. And I thought, looking down, you're avoiding sin by staring or by looking at my chest. And it's like, wow, it's a good way to go to heaven. Like, bravo, finding those irony in the way they are, campaigning their, ideology and sort is what is what led me to comedy at the first place, but also what led me to activism through comedy, because all of those are in the spirit of basically in the spirit of basically fighting for women's rights, fighting for dialogue, for peace, for tolerance, for Indonesia that was and hopefully will always be an example of the smiling Islam, of the Islam that I believe, the Islam of that most Muslim believe as a religion of peace, as a religion that honor women's rights, if we're looking at the history, and as a religion of dialogue, of openness, of moderation.
Your job is more difficult because it's extremely patriarchal society.
Yes.
So it gets even harder than maybe in some countries like in Europe or in US.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Leila, when we talk about changing the narrative, Sadia mentioned how even in books, in literature, you can find how education of men and women are actually talking about us laughing hard, being witches and similar. What can be done actually? So like change of mentality, I think it's a long process, but even today it's like I can see like 5 women talking about this issue. Should we maybe start with, and we always talk about educating women, should we start maybe with educating men and women? Like, I don't know what is the answer, but
yeah. Sorry. By the way, Sadia, I wanted to let you know that one of the reasons I got death threats in my activism is because I use humor. In the UK, I'll actually share the video. There's a video I did with a comedian in the UK where she interviews me about FGM, but she was the most ridiculous journalist. But that humor, there's something about joy that really upsets those who are trying to control us. So joy is really one of our tactics we should be using, one of the narratives, especially as activists. I think happiness and joy and pleasure really upsets those who want to be in control. And if I come back to your question, the work I do with FGM, we always talk about education is very important. And by the way, that word is thrown around a lot. Give a girl a book and a pen and life is going to be great. My question is, what the hell is in that book? Because some of these women went to the best schools in the world, but they still carry some of these women are actually the foot soldiers of patriarchy. What I mean by foot soldiers, these are women who are promoting patriarchy and they went to the best schools. So for me, it's not a girl having a book and a pen. For me, it's what's in that book, because that's the information that we are feeding to our girls. And I'll give an example. I mean, now I live in Kenya, but when I lived in Europe, there's a really great project called Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates. I really recommend you look into that. She's done a research into the UK school curriculum. So I interviewed her for a panel discussion. And do you know what the biggest outcome was? That our school curriculum in the UK was actually anti-women, anti-girl. One of those examples was the clitoris organ is not on the biology books. That's how much the education system is anti-women. The fact that a very vital organ, it's not even on our biology books. So when we're saying, do we need to educate women? If we're educating women through biology books where she can't even see parts of her body, it's no use to anybody. Or teaching boys, educating boys. What's the point of educating boys if we're not giving them the right information? I think for me, education is very important. What information we give people to educate them with, it's key. And that's the real problem for me. I don't think, everybody's born, as a baby, as a child. I don't think men are born to be, misogynistic men and women are the foot soldiers of patriarchy. There's a society and the education system that feeds this information. I raised my daughter when, before she went to school, she didn't think pink were for girls and blue was for boys. She goes into school, the school tells her pink is for girls. The school tells her she can't play football, she should be doing dance instead. So that really, so for me, I'm not, I actually don't trust our majority of our education system. I think it's very dangerous, it's very anti-women, and there has to be a radical change in our school curriculum. I think in order to protect women, in order for women to be at the forefront, in order for women to be respected by everybody, our education curriculum absolutely needs to be, because we don't even have the clitoris organ. And I remember thinking, that can't be right. And I remember her saying to me, she said, Layla, if we were taught about this, our teachers would have said one thing. They would have said, this is your pleasurable, because there's nothing else it does. It's there to be pleasured. That's it. I don't remember any teacher telling me this. So the idea, so education is great, but the information, it's really what, I mean, even that video that I'm referring to, where we used a sketch, we did like a comedy sketch. And Daniela herself, you know, one of the things her and I connected with is the comedy. Daniela uses a lot of comedy in her videos. You know, humor is really key. That's how I educate people. I love working with artists. For me, working with, you know, artists like documentary makers, visual, digital artists, really for me, it's one of the best tools we have in terms of really tackling social justice. Like, that's really key to me. So education, we need to be careful. We don't throw that around. It's like, the question should be, what are we educating? What's the resource we're giving to people? Yeah.
Yeah.
And language, sorry, just one point. Language is very key, because in the work that I do, when people talk about FGM or they mention child marriage, there's nothing marriageable about a child. This is a pedophile. Call it for what it is. Yes. You know, female genital mutilation is not a cultural practice. This is a serious sexual assault against children. So once we change the language, we know what to do with it. We know what to do with pedophiles and rapists. Mm-hmm. If you wrap it around this lovely bow of child marriage or cultural practice, it changes everything. See, that's the way to educate. That's how I educate people. I'm very direct. This is rape. This is pedophilia. This is serious sexual assault. There's no, to me, that's the kind of education people need, but not this whole wrapped around in a bow with a nice spray on top. You know, it doesn't work. That doesn't work for me.
And everyone is actually trying to use these nice words and to wrap it up in a shiny paper. So it doesn't sound as it is. Yeah, absolutely good point. And for the education, definitely there's a great need to change the whole education system and the whole narrative in the books for the kids, even in the kindergarten. Daniela, Layla just mentioned art, and I think that artists actually have this great responsibility, because not only that you're artists, but you're also public figures. So people actually look up to you, and so how do you see your role as someone who is famous here in Serbia? Everyone knows you from the movies that you did. So how do you see your role as an activist and someone actually who is trying to organize things here? Is that making your life easier or more difficult when it comes to activism? About the background noise.
Well, that's a great question. I'm going to link onto Sagdia and Layla said. I guess the role as a if people or women look up to me in Serbia is for me to be happy and empowered, for me to express joy, humor, pleasures. I think that just to kind of confirm that, like that was my inner finding, that the biggest space of power and change is our happiness, and us to be able to speak truth to power, and stay in humor. Humor comes when the trauma and oppression don't owe you anymore, don't own you, but you own it. The humor comes when you take over the narrative. And I think that's I salute Sagdia for everything that you do. Bravo. And I think that I don't know, to answer your question, I think that's much more than any speech or about activism that I can make, or anything that I can do other than when it comes to kind of like serious rhetoric. I think one of the most important, roles that I have as a public figure is to express how speaking up, how much it leads to healing and empowerment. So yes, to that point. And when it comes to art, I think yes, I think that art is the biggest cultural shifter that we actually have. I think that it's the good art and well thought through concepts. They, when it comes to activism, they usually comes from a deep pain. When expressed well, I think that these are the most powerful tools we have, and that's why we have so many activists that use art as their tool, and we also have so many artists and performers that ended up being an activist just by expressing themselves through an art form.
Yeah, and I mean, humor actually, lowers the amount of fear. So through humor, you can express more openly and with less fear than just, speaking up and saying something. So definitely humor is the way. Sorry.
And I just want to mention Canvas and your legacy. I was 15 when first time I've heard about Otpor. I was raised in a small village, and it was a very dark age as far as I remember it. And Otpor used humor to me as a 15-year-old, like understanding like what the stakes are and how impossible it is for us to get out of the dictatorship. I just couldn't believe the audacity. I remember the songs, the rock and roll songs and slogans, and so yeah, that was one of my kind of like, as a young girl that didn't have a lot of influences growing up in a small village. This was one of the strongest influence. So yes, I just want to salute to Canvas and to Otpor for what they've done to our culture. Yeah.
Thank you. We have some questions in the chat, so maybe we can address them. From Solomon to everyone, how do you educate more conservative societies on issues of teenage pregnancy or even child marriage? Is the direct approach the most successful? Sadia, maybe you have some ideas because you're coming from really close society. So what works in Indonesia, what doesn't?
One of the things, there are two things that actually will work. Two or three things that I can mention to openly challenge. Of course, it's going to be difficult. Not only that it's going to be difficult, maybe then you will face blatant resistance or simply being ignored. Basically, simply being ignored. But there are several approaches, and I saw this circulating among my friends as well. And so what I'm about to share with you is based on personal experiences of myself, of my friends as well. Number one, storytelling. Storytelling, not in a form of like storytelling like you have to like make a compelling art performances, documentary or something. If you can, please do so. If you can, please do so. But I have a friend who was was involved in this matchmaking, pedophilia, child marriage, Dr. Hussein, Dr. Leila said, and then she got divorced. And then she said, or she told many people, as many people that she can reach out to about her experience domestic violence and many abuse because she didn't know who her husband was who her husband was before she got married and everything. And that is very powerful. That is very powerful. Second is how women have the power, how to believe in women as well, believe in women, and generations of women. It's not going to be a short time. It's not going to be a short time. There's a true story from Indonesia, from a close friend who was straight A student and who was forced into marriage and who was divorced, being abandoned by her husband after they had 3 kids. And she raised all of the 3 daughters, all of the 3 daughters with so much bravery, with so much commitment, that one of her eldest daughter, now is in the best school in Indonesia. And basically this personal commitment to just cut this vicious cycle of abusing women, of exploiting women, of discriminating women, that works. Now, in other words, and then of course, a more public approach through art, through comedy, through whatever means that you can find, to educate people, that speak to their heart, that speak to their concerns. Why using comedy is effective? Because it's fun. Even some of the conservative, I mean, they may be furious about it, but you know what? The only reason that they're furious about, the 2 reasons that they're furious about it: 1, of course, it challenged their authority, but 2, they found it actually, that they find that it's actually funny. That's what I believe, that it's actually funny, and that it can touch, because it's actually funny, it can touch people's heart, it can move people. So more personal, more community, making sure that you are supporting those who are at the forefront of basically cutting this vicious cycle, and then do some creative approach publicly.
Yes, and that is really frustrating. You're laughing, but you're not sure if you should laugh or be angry. So that's kind of we would say in Canvas dilemma action. So there is one more question. How do we challenge the systematic education? Leila, this is actually something that you mentioned, so maybe you can give an answer. How do we challenge the systematic education system and their content, though? And how do we break the inherent patriarchal mindset to our society? Education is powerful, but as you say, only if it is the right information. So how do we educate more men and boys on why feminism isn't anti-man movement, and that actually they are victims of patriarchy too? So yeah, I think this is a really good point.
Absolutely, a very good point. I think we need to recognize, patriarchy actually harms men. Look at the world it's created. That you can't even watch the news. That's what patriarchy has done to society. So we know it's not healthy for anybody. But how do we make sure, for me, it comes back to change the system. In order to even understand what feminism is, that information isn't even out there. The information that's out about feminism right now, it's the radical, because any group, and we have to be very honest, every group has a radical group. Even the feminist movement, unfortunately, has a very radical group that I don't associate with. Because for me, I consider myself to be a very proud African feminist who's a woman. But I also want to have conversations with men. It's important that I have conversations with men. It's important that my brother's part of my conversations, my nephews, my friend. I think you can't come up with a solution where we are constantly having conversations on our own about men and the pain men cause. At the same time, women deserve their own spaces just because we are not safe in this world. So just picture the information people are getting in this Zoom call right now. Unfortunately, not many people have access to this. So for me, one of the things that needs to happen if we were going to start to see change, we actually need to see access of this type of information, because you don't see this type of information out there. Even in the media, they either get the very radical lefty woman who's a feminist, who's usually a white woman in the countryside with, loads of money, who doesn't have a clue, but somehow feels she can speak for all Black women in the world. So there's that person, and then the very, very radical right, who are now bombing abortion clinics in Alabama. They get to have the space to speak. See, that's the access people have, but me, Danielle, and Sadi don't have. Actually, I can't even imagine a lot of people, a lot of comedian shows will be struggling to hire Sadi, because that's not their narrative of Muslim women. She doesn't fit into that box. So access is really key. We can't change a system if people don't have access to the right information. Hence why I keep coming back to, there needs to be a radical change on our school curriculum. I genuinely hated sending my child to school. I had to teach her at home. I had to redo the information she was given at school, because I could see the dangers of it. But obviously, if I don't take her to school in the UK, I would have been arrested as a parent. So I'm also in trouble. So it's a very difficult way of navigating these systems. We can't keep blaming the people. You have to blame the system that's been built. There's a reason why women are violated the way they do, because the judicial system doesn't protect women. If you go and look at statistics, how a rape perpetrator, check how many years he gets versus a bank robber. It's not the same. The bank robber is more likely to have more years in prison. So those systems need to change. If that doesn't change, but then how do we make the change? We need to have access. That's the issue. If people don't have access, then how do we change people's minds? We don't. I mean, we are talking about countries around the world where the idea of even having YouTube or internet, there's no access. So it's very challenging. We're talking about countries who are very free, like the US, Europe. They still don't have the right access. I mean, there's a great, I'm a documentary junkie. That's why I love the art so much. So there's a documentary on Netflix that I watched yesterday. It's called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, which is based on the Mormon community in America. These are people who live in the land of the free. But this particular Mormon community didn't know who the president was. Then how do we expect that woman to have change? She doesn't even have the information of who her current president is. So some communities are they're very isolated like that. So we need to make sure there's access. There has to be access.
And this actually gives us an answer, to the question, to one of the key questions at the beginning, like what international community, what international organizations can do, because I have the feeling that everyone is so project focused, and as you mentioned, that there are like these feminist groups that are kind of extreme, and then I think that maybe making some kind of global woman movement and those international organizations can help in educating more women and men.
Absolutely. Oh no, I can't even go to the list. A lot of the women NGOs who are really sending the wrong message. And it's a very dangerous message, very dangerous. Yeah.
And I think this is why, every fight for women's rights is actually understood wrongly, because they are being heard and they are being loud, and not the right messages are coming out. Exactly. Daniela, I think this next question is actually for you. How do you deal with the threats and the overall danger that comes with activism? Did that ever discourage you from speaking up?
Well, yeah, it was a learning curve to get used to it. I found a lot of encouragement and kind of resilience with other women activists. Like just kind of sharing my frustrations with them, or being in a company of other women activists just really helped me to see, just kind of to heal and get over it and get my power back. And then also just kind of like, when it comes to activism, I think when we are ever wondering like what is really working, about all the topics that we covered, I think what makes like toxic patriarchal systems really angry is what's really working. Like when they are real, like exactly where they're attacking us. That's why I thought that like when I post on social media that I'm just kind of happy and joyful and empowered, that these posts gets the most attacked just because I'm smiling, which is ridiculous. So but that's why I kind of got to the conclusion that is really working. And I think that it's just the most important thing for activism that I've took from this is that this is a really this is a marathon. This is a really long run. The changes come very often slowly, if they ever come, and one just has to kind of grasp ourselves with patience and be in a good community, with find a good community of people. That's because it's the kind of the activism fatigue is a big deal, and it can happen at, to all of us, and it happens to all of us. It's finding a space to heal, taking care of each other, and be kind of introducing kindness into our into our daily life, that it's okay for us to be angry and frustrated and feel defeated. I think that's really important to know. And then whenever, like in a daily basis, when I feel kind of overwhelmed, I just think of the bigger picture, and then that makes me keep on going.
Thank you. And I would go back to what Dr. Leila said at the beginning. Resting and pleasure is totally okay. And usually we are stigmatized, because we would take a few days off and leave kids with our husbands and go away with our friends. So that's totally okay. And I think it should become a normal thing to do.
That should be a movement. I think it's already a movement. I think there's a pleasure movement. If you go online, it's mainly, and there's a really great page called the NAP. So napping ministry. I recommend everybody to follow NAP ministry. They really encourage women to take rest, especially activist women, to really take some rest. It's a radical movement, as they keep calling it. It's a radical movement to actually rest.
So resting, using humor, and changing the education system are the three main points from today's session. I would actually like now to call Daniela, Sagdia, and maybe Leila call to action. I know Daniela is author of the movie Hold Me Right. So Daniela, do you maybe have some call to action that you want to invite our participants today?
I mean, yeah, I guess I was thinking about different call to action, but I got inspired during our panel, so I have a different one. I would call to action for all of us to share story or a mission on social media or in our community of one woman that changes the world for the better within our community, whoever that is. I think that empowering each other, empowering women's voices, these kind of, as Dr. Leila said, like the good radical activists, not the extreme radical activists. I think that empowering these voices provides the access that again Leila was talking about, and we might get to educate and inspire somebody that we didn't know we can. So yes, my call to action is share a mission or a story of woman in your life that you admire.
Thank you, Daniela. Sagdia.
Yes, my call to action. Well, as a proud student of Canvas, I know that numbers matter. Numbers, it's all about numbers, like Sarja said. But even though numbers matter, we should not give up to that one person that struggle to cut the vicious cycle in their life. Your one friend, your one neighbor, your one conservative uncle who has daughter who may want their daughter to be successful and who may lead the change because she just want her daughter to not get married so early and to be successful. Just don't give up on that one friend of yours, one neighbor, one woman in your community who's making a difference. Support local artists, support women's comedian. It's not easy everywhere across the world, even in Europe, in UK, US, Australia, where comedy is like very vibrant, very advanced. Women remains minority. So yeah, my call to action is to just, support that one person and support yourself. You deserve it.
Thank you, Sabia. Leila?
I have one really important call to action. So as I said earlier, I'm currently the Global Advocacy Director for the Girl Generation. The Girl Generation is a consortium of partners who are supporting the biggest Africa-led movement on ending female genital mutilation. This is an issue the world doesn't talk about so much, and I would love to highlight it. And by using this community, so I'm going to send a message in the group. All you have to do is copy that message and tweet it. And the message says, supporting African girls by following the work of the Girl Gen, and then you tag me, then I want to read it. Because our aim at the Girl Gen is to build the big movement. We want more people supporting, because unfortunately, and this is real statistics, the most vulnerable person, human being in the world is the African girl child. She's the one who's always left behind. Mm-hmm. So my call to action is that we all get behind the African girl child by supporting the Girl Generation work. All you have to do, I'm just gonna send that now in the group, and then all you have to do is just tweet that, because we have the tools of social media now where we can build these movements. So if you can all do that, I know there's quite a few of you, 91 of you, so I'm expecting at least 30 tweets from this. So that's I want the world to start supporting the most vulnerable girl, which is the girl African child. Yeah.
Thank you. I already copied. Thank you. Thank you all. I think we had really interesting conversation today, and some points are really kind of giving me inspiration to do more. I hope we will continue our struggle together. I think that we have an amazing team. And I would like actually now to call you for our next session, which is on Thursday. I already mentioned it's going to be moderated by Sređa Popović. We will have our amazing Bolivian activist, Janice Vacadaza. Everyone is laughing because everyone knows her. And we will have our Georgian activist, Shota. I will not try to pronounce his last name. I'm sure I will not do it properly. Georgian activist and founder of the Shade movement in Georgia. They will speak about blitzkrieg movements and how social movements which are tackling corruption, environment issues are changing the world and the movements today. So please join us next Thursday and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Canvas.
Bye, guys.
Bye.